How's it going, fellas? Anyone who has friends, has social media, watches TV, or, isn't living under a rock, it's pretty clear that the political tensions have been the most divisive in modern history. Some of the biggest tensions are on a certain issue where the activists wear diapers. In the 1990s, former US President Bill Clinton nationally condemned illegal immigration, and the population generally agreed with him as they saw him to be right. Fast forward to June 16, 2015, and instead of illegal immigration being nationally condemned, those who were against it were starting to become nationally condemned themselves. A speech was given by current US President Donald J. Trump, and in one part he argued, since then, those associated with the Democratic Party have dismissed people against illegal immigrants as racists, bigots, xenophobes, and other buzzwords. Heck, activists were already slandering Donald Trump as this evil racist when they don't even do their own research. While he was seen as this Mexican hating xenophobe, there should be other interpretations that need to be considered to see if they make any sense too. What they heard was Mexicans are horrible people. What could be understood from the actual speech was this being the assumption that Mexico does have good people. Heck, it has plenty of wonderful, loyal people who are willing to seek opportunities to help themselves and the people around them. But when Mexico is so close to the United States, and when the majority of illegal immigrants in the United States happen to be from Mexico, that alone happens to be a concern. Some people have argued the way Donald used the word there in the form of possession, rather than they are as a contraction. Now, this one seems to always be ignored. On one hand, it does seem to be suspicious as why that could be. On the other, it's understandable. While people did feel he unfairly judged people vaguely, it comes off as a mentioned slap in the face. Almost as if telling someone, you've done this, this, and this, which is illegal, immoral, and you should be punished severely for it. But I do think you have some good qualities. Either way, he did acknowledge that there are some good people from Mexico, which goes back to the sentence before, that Mexico has astounding people, likewise, some of whom are already in the US, whether legally or illegally, but their presence seems to be harder to find given the crime rate from illegal aliens. What was the point of analyzing a quote from a speech from almost 3 years ago? Unfortunately, people still cite this as a reason for his racism and a reason not to support him. The typical, he's racist because he hates Mexicans, he said so when he called them rapists, has been thrown around and will be for the next few years. Because it's politically correct to describe illegals as undocumented citizens, people have been accused of defending white. Well, the problem with the word undocumented is that it wants to ignore the fact that people came here illegally and they want to find a loophole or at least make it sound like they're fighting for a good cause instead of defending people who committed criminal activity. The word undocumented is now thrown around. Undocumented, here to stay. Well, that still shouldn't let them off the hook. If someone drove without a license, or if a person sold illegal drugs, they should be called out for it. They should be ticketed or charged for driving without a license, or be tried for selling illegal drugs, and not be dismissed as an unlicensed driver or an unlicensed pharmacist. More importantly, they shouldn't have activists and movements to defend them. As for defending white supremacy, Donald Trump himself isn't racist, therefore, they can't be defending white supremacy. First of all, illegal isn't a race. Second of all, in one of his rallies, the topic of illegal immigration came up, and Donald had a bunch of people sharing their stories of how illegal immigrants took the lives of innocent loved ones. One of them happened to be an illegal alien from Russia who overstayed his visa. This was followed by the obvious cheering, which proves that many of his supporters really couldn't care less where the perpetrator comes from. They'll still be seen as someone who should be deported since it's a criminal offense. It's not even racist no matter how you twist it. Racism is defined as the racial superiority / inferiority and hatred or tolerance of a different race or races. It's possible that some of these people would see illegal immigrants as inferior, only because they decided to go through the trouble of residing in another country and not taking the time to go through the legal procedure. Yes, it takes a long time, but it certainly shouldn't take decades long, which is how long the overwhelming majority of illegals tend to stay. It also brings out the selfish intentions of these people for two reasons. One, even though the United States of America doesn't have an official language, English is still the most spoken, and it's nice to have a bunch of people becoming bilingual, but under the circumstance of illegals refusing to speak or even learn English, that'd be a bit more of a reason to deport. On top of that, many of those same people show pride in their homeland. Now, that's not a negative aspect at all, but questions certainly rise when you become a hardcore patriot of your birth country and still show that when you move to another country, especially if done improperly. You're so desperate to reside in another area to seek opportunity that yours doesn't already have. Demand that it should be like your birthplace, then see it as a punishment to be sent back? If a child decided to move out of their home because they had abusive parents, for example, they wouldn't constantly mention how much they miss their parents and wish for their new home to be like how it once was when they lived with their original parents. What would be the point of leaving what they once didn't feel safe in? 2. One common argument in favor of illegal immigration is so that the people have a better life for themselves and their family. Who doesn't want a better life? That shouldn't give anyone the right to steal bread from the store or rob a bank. And if it was because their lives are in danger, they shouldn't simply be believed. Who would know if these people truly are financially unstable and are starving to death, or if they simply want the benefits? That's why laws exist. And while some people do see this as selfishness, that doesn't necessarily mean they see them as inferior. There exist people who don't get hostile, and they want to tolerate these illegals by having them apply for citizenship, have a work visa, and everything. That couldn't be more true. They do have potential. They do have the choice of a right path. What they shouldn't do is play the victim, which has evidently been a tactic used by the overwhelming majority of them and their advocates, and that just isn't a good strategy. Lastly, there seems to be an inconsistency in the advocacy for this movement. It's completely acknowledged that they're illegal by using the soft language term undocumented. But at the same time, they drop the word and are just referred to as immigrants. Going back to the earlier analogies, unlicensed pharmacists and drivers, should there be a movement for them, shouldn't have the word unlicensed dropped because reasons. And whatever consistency undocumented advocates have is vanished once they use it positively for Mexicans and other minorities and negatively for European immigrants from half a millennium ago. One minute it's, Donald Trump and Republicans hate immigrants. How could they? They're here to stay. Then it's, white Europeans are the real immigrants. They're the ones who stole the land from the Native Americans, and Native Americans now deserve unlimited reparations because of the evil illegal immigrants who stole their land. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. But wait, there's more. This leads to the advocacy of Native Americans and quotes like, "Make America Indigenous again," and "Welcome to America, speak Cherokee." The past shouldn't be a reason to dislike people today just because they share the same skin color of other people whose actions were carried out generations before any of us were born.